Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our pod.
Hello, happy rainy Saturday.
Happy rainy Saturday.
It has been raining
yes,
torrentially.
So today was actually supposed to be our day off from recording.
Yes.
But because we've just been having really bad weather all week. Every time we try to record, it's thundering and raining, or I have to work late. I've been working later than I normally have, than I usually do, and yeah. So we're here. We're recording.
We're making it. Hey.
Yeah.
Again, we're not up against any deadlines technically, right, or against any contracts or deals. But if you would like to sponsor this podcast, we could be.
Factor Meals.
Factor Meals. We love them. Anyone else? Starbucks.
Starbucks would be awesome.
ABC, CBS, Tubi, Netflix, any Hulu.
I think Tubi would be like the most realistic.
Yeah. Tubi, Pluto.
Yeah. Whatever.
Anybody that wants to sponsor this podcast, we love you.
Yes. So Saturday the 14th. Yesterday was Friday the 13th. And we released, what was it, Bates Motel? Yeah, we released Bates Motel on Friday the 13th. Did completely unintentional. But yeah,
Creepy.
So it ended up working out. We watched Friday the 13th Part 2 last night, which is arguably the best one in the series.
Oh, yeah.
Amy still rules.
Absolutely love it. It's to me, it's the best one of like the original few. Yeah.
I agree. Part 4 is my other favorite. Yeah. Part 1 is just kind of boring. It's just kind of boring. I mean, it's good. Once you see the movie and you know the twist, it's just like, yeah, we got it. Yeah. But yeah, so we are continuing Summer Blockbuster Month. So I think this is the episode people are going to be coming back after we skipped a day.
Okay.
So just because of scheduling and Anna's traveling a lot this month and work and weather and just circumstances, we had to skip a day this month for an episode. So sorry. It's actually the show that we skipped. It's actually the second time we've had to skip it.
I know. I don't know how it keeps happening because we both actually like the show and the movie.
I mean, we can go ahead and say it. It's Fargo. Because we've done it so many times, I'm like, if we do it again, I'm not watching the pilot because I want to keep watching the show.
I know. We need to stop watching the pilot. Yeah. We were going to do that during March, during spring break month as a city, a place to visit.
Right.
But somehow my work travel that month got us derailed, and we had to skip a day, and we had Maddie's cruise.
I was about to say that was the cruise. Yeah,
that was the cruise month, so lots of stuff was going on.
That month was crazy. I remember. So we are doing Parenthood, a movie that we both love and a TV show we both love.
I'm so sorry. I had our two pods.
Did you once again think that we were recording Ted?
Yes.
Okay, so the last show we're recording we're releasing for the month is Ted, and I've had to tell Anna about 3 times today that we're not recording Ted, we're recording Parenthood.
First.
In fact, right before we recorded, and then there says Parenthood right there, in front of you.
I'm looking at you, and I was like, wait a minute, I mixed it up.
I know, you're kind of looking at me. I was like, I didn't think you watched this show. I didn't. I know you love the movie.
Yeah, I love the movie.
Okay, so backtrack. I love this show. Anna loves the movie. I love the movie as well, but you really love the movie.
Yes, I love the movie.
And this is one of my favorite shows. It was a big time. I watched it by myself. It made me cry. Got me in my feels. So we have a lot to talk about, and this is going to be a fun episode. So Anna's just going to go ahead and give us some episode, series, and movie information.
All right, Parenthood, the pilot. Parenthood was an American family drama that aired on NBC from March 2nd, 2010 to January 29th, 2015 for a total of 6 seasons and 103 episodes. The series was developed by Jason Katims, best known for being the showrunner for another series adapted from a movie, Friday Night Lights. The pilot was also written by Katims and was directed by Thomas Schlamme, who also directed the pilot for The West Wing. Parenthood is based on the 1989 hit film of the same name, written by Lowell Gans and Babaloo Mandel, and was directed by Ron Howard. The film revolves around the Buckmans, a close but very dysfunctional family as they go through the ups and downs of their everyday lives, which includes parenting, sibling dynamics, and their love lives. The film has a star-studded cast, which includes Steve Martin, Diane Wiest, Harley Jane Kozak, Thomas Hulsey, Mary Steenburgen, Rick Moranis, Jason Robards, Eileen Ryan, Martha Plimpton, Keanu Reeves, and a young Joaquin Phoenix.
I mean, what a cast.
But he wasn't...
He was Lee Phoenix.
He was Lee Phoenix in the movie. The series centers around the Bravermans, and they are just as dysfunctional as they are loving. Although the overall plot of the show and certain storylines are like the movie, the series was able to develop and evolve the characters better to make them more likable. The matriarch and patriarch of the Braverman family, Zeke and Camille, are played by Craig T. Nelson and Bonnie Bedelia. They have 4 children who are now adults. The eldest, Adam, played by Peter Krause, Sarah, played by Lauren Graham, Crosby, played by Dax Shepard, and Julia, played by Erica Christensen. Adam's family includes his wife, Christina, played by Monica Potter, their teenage daughter, Hattie, played by Sarah Ramos, and their preteen son, Max, played by Max Burkholder, who is from Ted.
Yes.
Which is, like, he's so cute in that. And just, I was like, oh my God, it's like a little
John.
Little John.
Little John Bennett.
Sarah's family includes her 2 teenage children, Amber, played by Mae Whitman, and Drew, played by Miles Heiser. Crosby is a bachelor and didn't have any kids until a former fling, Jasmine, played by Joy Bryant, introduces him to their 5-year-old son, Jabbar, played by Tyree Brown. Julia's family includes her husband, Joel, played by Sam Yeager, and their young daughter, played by Savannah Page Ray.
Yeah, it's quite a cast.
Oh,
quite a big cast.
Yeah. Mike O'Malley, Jason Ritter, and Marguerite Moreau would play recurring roles throughout the first season. Although the series was well received by critics and audiences and had solid ratings throughout the show's run, Parenthood never really broke out as a hit show, but the series still has a strong fan base and is considered to be one of the best family dramas of all time. You can currently watch the entire series on Hulu, and the movie was recently added to Tubi.
Like less than a week before we recorded this.
It's crazy.
It got added to Tubi because we had to rent it. Originally, this was going to be the only movie that wasn't available on streaming that you didn't have to rent.
Yeah.
That you had to rent, So, yeah, the fact that I had to add the Tubi thing, right before I printed this out because I was like, oh, I think it got added to something. So, yeah, it's on Tubi.
Yeah.
So you can watch it for free.
Sponsor us, Tubi.
Oh, that'd be so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's pretty crazy that I always kind of wonder... we've talked about this before, but there are just certain shows that just don't catch on regardless of how good they are or how, the show went on for 6 seasons, 103 episodes, but it never really, and you read, it never really broke out as a hit show. It wasn't like Modern Family or all the other kind of shows that were on at the time. Like Glee came on around this time, and Big Bang Theory and all these other shows were just so massively popular. And I always wonder if it was because the Parenthood, the show, was just maybe too real for people, or maybe it was just, I find it to be, out of all the family shows I've ever watched, I found it to be the most relatable just because the characters were so grounded and realistic. I don't know, maybe too real isn't the right word, but maybe it just there was such a heavy dose of comedy going on at the time on TV. I don't know. I'm always curious why shows like that just don't catch on.
Well, okay, I will tell you 2 reasons for me personally that I don't think I watched it. Was I maybe actually did watch the pilot because I was intrigued because I have such a connection to the movie.
Right.
But this was coming off the cusp of Lauren Graham finishing The Gilmore Girls.
Right.
And I did not want to watch Lauren Graham be Lorelai again.
Be a single mom again.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm serious. I really, I think for me was, she wasn't acting like Lorelai in any way.
Right.
So I don't want to make that comparison. But when they sort of introduced her character as the single mom, she had, 2 kids in this one and was just a little kooky and crazy and
very like hectic. And,
yes,
yeah.
and I was just like, oh no, we just finished this.
Right.
Like, I can't handle it.
Oh yeah, and like her kids are nothing like Rory.
Oh yeah, nothing like Rory. But the other thing was, for me, it could have been the kids from the movie grown up.
Yeah.
Because it was 21 years from when the movie happened to when the TV show happened, so it could have really have been them. But I didn't think that the TV show had enough connection to the movie for me, so I wasn't emotionally invested in it.
Gotcha.
So when I started watching it, I was like, I miss Steve Martin.
Right.
I miss Rick Moranis. I miss Keanu. I mean, like,
yeah.
It was similar, but not enough to keep me watching.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, it was just like any other family TV show. And to me, it was
so much of that at that time. Yeah.
That, and I will venture to say that 2010 to 2015, sort of the ascent of Netflix and all of those things starting.
Mm-hmm.
So people watching actual network television, I feel, was starting to wane.
Yeah.
Because everyone had so much at their fingertips.
That's true.
And so
kind of right in the middle of it too.
Yeah, because I kind of feel like all of those things combined, minus the Gilmore Girls, because that was just me. But maybe a lot of people. I mean, I know it's unpopular opinion that, a lot of people thought Lorelai was cool and hipster and stuff. She got on my nerves a lot. But that to me was maybe one of the reasons it didn't like skyrocket in ratings or anything.
Gotcha.
I mean, I think it was obviously good enough to last 6 seasons, because that's nothing to sneeze at.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the cast is just so incredible. It is one of those shows that like I wasn't kind of looking back on it. It was one of those shows where like I wasn't sold by the pilot. I wasn't like, I gotta keep watching. It wasn't one of those kind of shows. It was one of those I'm like, okay, I was just like, all right, and it kind of ended the way it ended, and I was just like, okay, well, this is definitely going to be we're gonna try and make you cry every episode type of show, and which I'm all for. But yeah, I just remember like maybe there's a very specific episode. I want to say it's like the 4th episode, or I believe the episode is called Rubber Band Ball, and that was the episode. Whichever episode that was in the first season, that was the episode where I'm like, okay, I'm in. I was just like, I kind of like, you kind of start falling in love with the characters. You start to like get attached. You start to like get invested. And it really is one of those shows that like, you may not be hooked, because it's just not one of those type of shows.
No,
it's
not.
It's not one of those shows where you're like, it wasn't like the first episode of Lost or the first episode of like Melrose Place, where it's like the drama was so high and then it ended on a cliffhanger. Like it very much could have been like a 45-minute just short film, the way they kind of filmed it. I think that's really how Jason Katims does it with Friday Night Lights, is a very similar vibe where it's very drama heavy. The music, there's like swelling music. It's very like dramatic. And so it may take you a couple episodes to get into it, but yeah.
I liked it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I will say, having watched it now with clear vision, minus Lorelai Gilmore in my head.
Right.
I mean, and I love all the players. I loved Erica Christensen. I mean, she was amazing in, I'm going to get the movie wrong.
Swim Fan?
No.
Traffic?
I was going to say Crash, but that wasn't it.
Yeah.
Traffic.
Yeah, she was great. She was amazing.
She was
in Traffic,
amazing in that. I mean, I love Peter Krause. I loved him in 6 Feet Under. So obviously, Craig T. Nelson, banger. I mean, just in like so many things that I love. So watching it this time, I felt like, okay, I could have watched this.
Yeah.
And it wasn't Lorelai Gilmore, but at that time, that was just my immediate
That's
guttural
true.
reaction.
It had only been like a few years. Yeah. Maybe. Yeah, like a few years.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we both have seen the movie. So did you see the movie in theaters?
I sure did.
Why don't you tell me about it?
Well, I guess maybe I haven't told you about it. So
you're telling the listeners. I know the story.
Oh, okay. All right. So this movie is extremely sentimental to me. I had This was the summer of 89, and my dad had discovered he had cancer.
Mm-hmm.
My mom thought she might have cancer. It ended up just being like nothing for her. And then like that August, I had my wisdom teeth taken out.
Oh,
so
wow.
like we were all up in doctors and dentist offices that summer at my house. So I was home from college and I had gotten my wisdom teeth taken out. And, you know, and back in the 80s and, you know, everyone is just like, whatever about your wisdom teeth.
Yeah.
There were, you know, you heard about things called like dry sockets or whatever. And I think I like hadn't eaten for like a day or something. My dad was making me shakes and I just was like, I just need to get out of this house. So I mean, between like both of my parents home and it just being me, I was like, get me out. So my mom was like, well, let's go to the movies. You're going to, you know, back to college in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So let's go. And I was starving, so we went and got roast beef po' boys. I mean, I remember
Nice.
It was like 2 days after my wisdom teeth were out, and I was eating a roast beef po' boy. And then we went to see Parenthood, so that was the last movie I saw with my dad and my mom together. So, sorry, listeners. Again, I'm crying, but so it was really special because we were together. It was just the three of us, which I'm trying to think back. Like, there wasn't a lot of times that it was always just the three of us.
Yeah.
Because by this point, Rebecca was married. She had gotten married, I think, like 83. My brother had gotten married in 1984. And so they were both off being married and whatnot, living their lives. So, you know, for the three of us to be together in a summer was fun. So I have just very emotional ties to Parenthood. So that was it. That was my experience with it. August. We went to see it, I think maybe like a week or two after it had come out. I mean, because back then, I mean, there weren't like so many movies. Like movies really did stay in the theater a long time. Like, I don't know if you have it in
I
here.
just have 1989.
Yeah, I knew it was 1989. So, I mean, it probably was one of like a summer movie.
Yeah.
And I think I had my wisdom teeth taken out like the last weekend of July or something. And we saw it like I said, a couple of days after I had gotten my wisdom teeth taken out. So yeah, that was that summer. And then, you know, I went to college a couple weeks later, middle of August, to do sorority rush with the chapter. And that was.
Yeah, the 1989 was the year of the Batman movie.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. The first Look Who's Talking. And Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. And Dead Poet Society. Parenthood is number 9 in the top highest grossing movies of 1989.
What did you say? It was Batman Returns?
No, the first Batman.
The first Batman.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And I knew Batman had come out because that fall, my dad later died in November of that year.
Yeah.
And I was home for Christmas. I think it was Christmas. Yeah. Because my mom and I had gone to Texas. And then she just wanted to come home. And my friends Daniel and Brian took me to the old Rivergate where Harrah's is now. They were having a car show. And the Batmobile was there because it was like the big hyped up, like everyone's like, oh my gosh, like the
August 2nd, 1989. That's when Parenthood was released.
Okay, then it must have been we went to see it like right then because I had gotten my wisdom teeth out like the last weekend of July,
and it made more money than Back to the Future Part 2.
Wow, and then
not a lot, but a little bit more.
Yeah, because Sorority Rush probably was around like August 20th or something, and they probably took me to college, and then I think they went to go and visit my sister after that. So yeah, crazy times. Funny how time flies. It's crazy how that just seems
and
not like yesterday, but it doesn't seem so long ago.
I remember I had a book that I think I was maybe like 5th grade, so this would have 4th or 5th grade, so this has been like early mid 90s. I got this book from my parents for my birthday or for Christmas, and it was the top 10 of everything. That was the name of the book. So it was like top, it was like all these different anything you can possibly think of. It was this thick book, and that's how I learned all these random facts about things.
Oh, I love stuff like that.
And there was like a whole section of like the biggest actors at that time, like their biggest movies. And I remember there was a picture of Steve Martin dressed as the cowboy in Parenthood, and that was his like most profitable movie at the time. Like that was his like number one, like the movie that had made the most money at the time.
Wow.
Which is insane. And the fact that he was like included in that just showed how famous he was at that point in time. Like,
oh, well, I mean, he was famous for like The Jerk and SNL and the whole King Tut stuff and all of that.
The Dancing with Gilda Radner lives rent free in my head at all times.
So, I mean, he was definitely someone that my parents knew because we watched Saturday Night Live and The Jerk was, you know, one of the craziest movies ever.
Pretty insane movie. All right, so
we've seen Bernadette Peters. So
we have. That was awesome. Yeah, so Parenthood was a movie that we watched a lot. It was like one of our rental, like a movie that we would like regularly rent. It was like one of my mom's. I want to say it was like one of my mom's favorite movies.
Oh, okay.
It was someone in my family's favorite movie. It was not the era where I was picking out movies, so I mean, like it wasn't mine. But I watched it anyway. I loved it. As I got older, I never hated it, but I think at one point in my young adulthood, I watched it, and I was just like, God, I hate all of these characters. I was just like, everyone is so miserable and so mean to each other. And then as I got older, I'm like, life is more complicated than that. So I was just like, I think this was still in my era when I was really young. When you're really young and everything is very still black and white. Everything is still right or wrong. And as you get older, you realize that everything is just a shade of gray, and everything is more complicated than just your fault, my fault. It's kind of like a collective effort of fault and accountability. And I appreciate it now, especially as a parent, as an adult. Watching it now, I'm like, I get this movie now. You know, like I get this movie now watching it when I'm 40. But yeah, I love the movie. Steve Martin. Keanu Reeves is the best.
Oh my gosh,
so good in it.
So good. I love him in this. It's so crazy to see him then and to now know what he does today and what he's done all in between.
Right.
And so you're just like, wow, because
it's John Wick.
Yeah, John Wick. I know.
It's Neo.
Don't come at me, Alicia. I haven't watched the John Wick movies.
Yeah, we still haven't.
Yeah. I feel bad.
We'll watch them at some point.
One day.
Yeah, but The Matrix is one of my favorite movies, and I love Keanu in that. Okay, so we kind of talked about the pilot, but I can kind of ask you, since this was your kind of your second time watching the pilot, probably since 2010.
Yeah.
You know, so we're going on like 15 years now. So what did you think of the pilot watching it now?
I liked it.
Yeah.
I mean, I felt like it was, to me, minus the name, it was really a standalone.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I get the comparisons, but I think the name of the show is really, that's about it of comparison.
And starts with a B and ends with an N.
Yeah.
That's like their last name.
Yeah. And so I get when you were telling me like, oh, you know, Lauren Graham is supposed to be Diane Wiest and so, you know, and so. And I was like, yeah, okay.
Yes, yeah, but no.
Yeah, but. And so that's why I feel like I will tell you that people who saw the movie, and if they tried to watch this, were probably like, this isn't Parenthood.
It's not a remake,
Correct.
Yeah.
Or even, I mean, it's a faux make. I don't even know what you would call it, because to me, it's a sort of standalone show, other than those teeny tiny similarities. So, but I liked it. I think it just introduced everybody. Of course, there was the ending and like all of the issues and things that you were learning about the dynamics between the couples, the siblings, their kids. It was a very good pilot in the sense of it kind of gave that good picture introduction to what the show was going to be about.
Yeah. I'm with you. So with the movie, that was more, I'm holding this tiny screwdriver like it's a pointer, like I'm a teacher or something like that.
Yeah.
So like it's a wand. So the movie is definitely kind of like the boomer generation as parents. whereas the series is much more of like Gen X as parents.
Absolutely.
So do you think that both the movie and the series is like an accurate portrayal of parenting, especially like given the generations?
Yes and no, because I mean, I'm not technically a parent. I don't have my own kids, so I have not had kids. I mean, obviously lots of my friends have kids, but going back to Parenthood, the movie, and I really, really remember this in the theater, things that I remember my mom like probably speaking out loud in the theater. I think it was only the three of us or maybe like a couple of other people, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But, and I think I told you this when we watched the movie, the fact that Martha Plimpton had a lock on her door to lock her mom out. Yeah. And then how Joaquin Phoenix had the padlock on his door to keep people out from when he left. Like, my mom was like, nope, that would not happen in my house. Like, that just would never, ever happen. I think she was also very shocked by the Rick Moranis with his little daughter. Yeah. And how he was like trying to make her smart and how it was affecting the relationship with, you know, his wife, Harley Jane Kozak. And I think my mom could relate to that in the sense of, my mom always wanted us to have an education and to do our homework and to do the best that we could. But she didn't like jam it down our throats. Right. Like when, you know, the little scene where she picks up the cardboard and he's like, what's the square root of like 2,942? And she picks it up and it's right. My mom was like, and what does that do? Right. You know, like, really, I think my mom was like, and like, what? You know, so I think a lot of the things in the movie, my mom was like, this isn't good. Right. And then I watched the pilot, and these are like my peers. Mm-hmm. This would be me. And, you know, I've always joked I would have like, you know, the person who could cure cancer or the next serial killer. Don't know who I would have raised. Right. But I sometimes, like you've also mentioned, I think that Gen X tries to make up for what the boomer generation did to them by loving them more, showing up to ball games, being at every event, doing all of these. The whole family coming to every event. Yes, the whole family coming every holiday together. Because I've always talked about, you know, my mom used to drop me off for my softball games or volleyball matches, and maybe every now and then she would stay just because it was too inconvenient to go home and come back. But if it was at the playground that was like just down the street, she'd be like, okay, I'll be back in an hour and a half, because she had stuff to do. But for me as a kid, I was fine with that. I now, you know, they show the reels on Instagram now where the kids are like singing in the choir on the stage, and they're like, oh, notice when he sees his parents, how happy it makes him. Yeah. And I'm like, I wasn't unhappy that my mom wasn't at my game. So I'm always like, I think these battles are self-created by society to either make you feel good or to make you feel bad. And so I feel like the TV show was kind of bringing those things into play. Yeah. Like just society's expectations and influence on the families and kids. Because back when I was being raised, I mean, my mom didn't know what the hell other parents were doing. Yeah. And where now it's on Facebook, it's on Instagram, it's on the next TikTok, it's on a YouTube video. Everyone's talking about it. It's on people.com or wherever. Everybody knows what everybody's doing. Right. Where back in like the 80s, you just knew what you were doing. Right. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting kind of watching it because, you know, I kind of grew up with, you know, I'm a millennial and my parents are boomers, and I kind of grew up in an environment where they were very supportive of the things that I did, and they wanted me to be active and to do things.
I didn't feel like they were like I didn't have a stage mom. Like I didn't have a sports dad. Like I didn't have the dad that was like, I remember playing soccer I played soccer for the Baton Rouge Soccer Association. It was not a league. There were no playoffs. There were no championships. It was just we would play soccer. We would play however many games, and then that was it. Like there was never but we would have the parents that would be on the sidelines kind of shouting at their kids. We had this one kid who he was a really good soccer player, but he was on our team and he didn't really talk to us. He didn't really hang out with us, but his dad was always at the games, and his dad was always his dad referred to him as champ.
Oh,
and
God.
It was like he would be shouting from the sidelines and, come on, champ, and he would do that. And I look back on it now, and I remember his name. I'm not going to say it, but I kind of felt bad for him because even as a kid, I was like, he's not talking to us because his dad's probably telling him not to. His dad's probably telling him, I didn't have that parent. I didn't have, my mom dropped me off at stuff. She didn't sit there and watch me practice. I played baseball and soccer off and on throughout my childhood, and my mom would kind of get there maybe the last 10, 15 minutes of the practice to come and pick me up. And that was kind of it. That was the era in which that was the time in which she would watch me. I just didn't have, but I did have the grandparents that and I did have the family. When I was in Oliver at Baton Rouge Little Theater, it was a big deal to me. It was a big deal for me. And I think everyone in my family, because I had a lot more family that lived in Baton Rouge at that time.
Yeah.
And I think every member of my family that lived in Baton Rouge, the greater Baton Rouge area, came and saw me in Oliver, and
but that was
that was community theater. That was a little bit bigger of a deal.
Well, I was gonna say, how many shows did y'all have?
We played. It was the second half of summer. We played we had the entire month of July.
But did they come every?
No.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah. No,
there are people that they go to every game, every practice, every week, every weekend. And again, I'm not dissing you. More power to you.
Right.
Just if that's what y'all want to do, great. I mean, it's like when your mom or your dad and Shelly are like, "Oh my God, we were out in the heat, and it was like we were dying at Gabriel's baseball game." And again, they love Gabriel. They love going.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting here going that sounds horrendous to me. I'm just love him, love Gabriel. Maybe he'll have an indoor game one day or something. Or
maybe he'll play an indoor sport at some point. Play some racquetball.
If he ever plays for LSU or the major leagues, I'll hit him up for a game. But right now, I'm good just hearing about the games. And so, but I don't think that makes me bad. Or,
I think that's kind of it. The parents that want to go to every practice, that want to go to every game, that want to see every performance, there's nothing wrong with that, but there's also nothing wrong with giving your kid a little bit more space and just kind of letting them. I think if my parents came to every practice, I would be self-conscious about stuff. I would be like, why are they here? I would just be like, why are they watching me? I would just be like, and so I think now. But I think now kids are more used to it. I think they're more maybe expecting it.
That's why I was saying those reels.
Yeah.
I see them all the time, especially at graduations and, the school theater spring production or whatever, where they're all just singing. And I don't know. I just am I feel like today's society makes you feel bad or tries to make you feel good or better based on how you're interacting with your kids. And particularly for women, I will say it's just hard because a lot of women work now. My mom didn't work, so she actually could have come to all of my crap, but I didn't want her to. I always felt like this is a little escape of my mom. I'm with her all the time.
Yeah.
So me being in the school play or me going to play volleyball. I mean, I think I've mentioned also that I played soccer for high school. Let me tell you, I should not have been playing soccer for my high school team. I was not good, but I did it to hang out with my friends and to boy watch.
To get out of the house.
And to get out of the house. So again, I feel like parents are different in different ages and over time, like who knows what it's going to be like in 10 years or.
Yeah. And it's interesting kind of watching the movie today through a 2025 lens, because it did kind of the 1989 movie, it was a little ahead of its time. It talked about like mental health, and it talked about addiction, and it talked about kind of like a more realistic take on like a divorced family. And watching it now, I'm just kind of like, especially the whole subplot with Steve Martin, his wife, and their oldest son, and all the stuff that they have to deal with his, like, I think in the movie they could really only call it like emotional problems. They didn't have like a name for it.
They didn't call it anxiety.
Yeah, they didn't have a name for it. And, back then they didn't have names for it. And the mentality was kind of just like, okay, suck it up, toughen up. And also this mentality, I've noticed this being on, I'm regularly on Reddit, and there's this mentality now that's not current anymore. The mentality that I grew up with was the world isn't going to stop moving because you're sad. The world isn't going to stop moving because you're depressed or anxious. You have to join the living and be a part of it, or you're going to miss out on stuff, and you're going to miss out on life. And you can't just, just because I think now this mentality now is just like, oh, well, everything that these kids, especially, and I could say this working with younger generations, is that the most mundane of tasks gives them a panic attack. Like they can't handle it because they're not used to handling things on their own. And even at 16, 17, I was working at McDonald's. Like I was working in the drive-thru at McDonald's dealing with adult customers yelling at me. Like I couldn't turn around and look at my boss and be like, I'm having a panic attack. They would be like, you're fired. They would be like, then go home. You don't need to be working here. It's just like, but now it's so much more. I can't, it'll give me a panic attack. It's like, you don't even know, you haven't even tried it yet, and that really is kind of the mentality now. And it's really interesting watching the movie today. And it's like, oh, they really kind of like dealt with it in a pretty healthy way in the movie with the oldest son and his problems. Of course, in the TV show, it's a little bit more of, it has more of a name. It has more of a Max has Asperger's, and it's a little bit more of like, okay, well, now we know what it is and we can deal with it because we have the information that we have today that we didn't have in 1989. But, and I think both the show and the movie deals with it in a very healthy way. But yeah, it's just really funny watching the movie and being like, wow, this movie was like really ahead of its time.
And again, and also with other things like I said, with Rick Moranis and his daughter and the educational aspirations and expectations. I mean, the little girl is like 5. Yeah. You're like, oh my gosh. And that's how I feel like when I see my friends and or their kids like starting school. Like we see it on our HOA page. They were like looking for a first grade tutor. I'm like, what the hell are they teaching in first grade that your kid needs a tutor? I'm like, oh my gosh. Like I just, what has happened?
Yeah,
and
it's they have to be on a college track by the time they're in like 6th grade.
Yeah. So I do think watching Parenthood, the 1989 version, the movie, and then I know that Parenthood, the TV show, is now 15 years old and, a little past its original air date that we just watched it again, but they're both really relatable into what society, what families are like, dynamics, married, divorced, single, troubled.
They're both still relatable and they're both still relevant.
Yeah,
I mean, like they're both still, like I said, it was ahead of its time, and the TV show kind of was too. Maybe that's another reason why I didn't pick up like it did, because it was just kind of, it dealt with things that other shows really weren't dealing with, and they were dealing with it in a serious manner, and it wasn't done in like a comedic way, which is, I think, what the avenue that a lot of shows would take. But yeah, we didn't have a kid together, but I feel like we would have been on the same page had we had a kid together.
Oh, I think so.
With parenting.
Yeah. I think we would have had a definite similar desire in the way we raised our kids, in the sense of like, I think we would have wanted them to have a job. I think we would have wanted them to be involved in school. I mean, both you and I were in sports and theater, and I was like student government and charitable things. So, I feel like we would have had like the cutest little kid. Aww. But anywho, so.
All right, you want to get into this plot summary?
Let's do it.
All right. So, the movie and the pilot are, they have some similarities. So I'm giving kind of like the broad summary of both the movie and the pilot, just because I always just am going to tell you just to go watch it. And make your own decision, but I will go over the movie plot and I will go over the pilot summary, but not super detailed. Okay. Just because the movie, I completely forgot. I always forget the movie is 2 hours long. I always forget that it's a long movie and a lot happens. So Let me just go ahead and I will start on the movie plot. Okay, so the film revolves around the Buckmans, which consists of four adult siblings, Gil, Helen, Larry, and Susan, and their parents, Frank and Marilyn. Gil is married to Karen, and they have 3 children, Kevin, Taylor, and Justin. Justin is just the cutest baby.
Oh my God.
In the entire world, with those curly blonde, those
blue
Goldilocks and those blue eyes and those rosy cheeks, super cute. Kevin is a preteen and is having emotional problems. He seems to suffer from severe anxiety and has problems socially interacting with his peers. Gil blames himself for all of his family's issues and constantly questions his abilities as a father, something he tends to project on his wife, which causes a strain in their marriage. A little later in the movie, Karen discovers that she's pregnant, and that's when Gil slowly starts to fall apart. Helen is a divorced mother of 2 teenagers, Julie and Gary. Julie is rebellious and has no interest in school and only seems to care about spending time with her boyfriend, Todd. That's Keanu Reeves. Gary has recently hit puberty and has become withdrawn. He insists on moving in with his father, who has moved on with a new family, which only causes him to withdraw more. He is often seen leaving the house with a brown paper bag that he keeps hidden in his room. Helen fears it's drugs or alcohol. Larry is the black sheep of the family and Frank's favorite. Larry never settled down, nor did he ever commit to an actual career, something Frank seems to envy. Larry falls off the grid and returns every few years when he needs money or a place to stay. He returns home with a son, Cool, the result of a one-night stand with the Vegas showgirl. Larry has returned because he owes a lot of money to some shady people. You never fully...
he never says who.
You never fully understand like what it was, but then he tries to make it like it's a business venture, but it really just seems like he owes money to some loan sharks. Yeah.
Some loan sharks, gambling money, something.
Susan is married to Nathan, and they have a young daughter, Patty. Susan wants to have more kids, but Nathan seems to be fixated on Patty and her cognitive abilities. Due to the stress, Susan eats junk food and does things like compromise her diaphragm in hopes of getting pregnant. Gil slowly begins to accept that life is messy and you can't control everything. The best you can do is be there for your family and hope for the best. Frank tells Gil, kind of out of character, he's a good father and assures him that you never stop worrying about your kids even when they're grown up. Gil's grandmother tells, it's like my favorite part of the movie, Gil's grandmother tells the story of the first time she was on a roller coaster and how she experienced so many different emotions and that it was worth it even though she was scared, and she was glad she didn't go on the merry-go-round, which was safe and ultimately unsatisfying. Such a great metaphor for life.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I love how the grandma is just kind of treated like this crazy old lady and everyone just dismisses her. And she tells the story, and Steve Martin kind of has this reaction, and Mary Steenburgen is like, I like the roller coaster story. It's so funny. It's so sweet. I love the grandma. She's funny.
She's the cutest.
But yeah, that was a really sweet scene, and I always love a good metaphor for life. Helen finds out that Julie is pregnant and Todd was kicked out of his house, so he moves in. When she discovers that what's inside the brown paper bag is porn, Todd comes to her rescue and talks to Gary about his newly developed hormones. one of the funniest scenes in the movie. Gary's been slapping the salami. It's so funny. Helen sees that Todd will be a great father and begins to come around to him. Gary's science teacher, George Bowman, has been asking Helen out, but she's resisted even though he's a nice guy. Gary begins to open up to his mother and gives her his blessing to date his teacher. Helen and George eventually get married and have a baby together. Frank gives Larry the money he owes the loan sharks, but Larry ends up taking the money and skipping town, leaving Cool behind. Frank and Marilyn take in Cool, and Frank sees it as an opportunity to be the father he always wanted to be. Another very sweet scene.
Yes, that one really tugged at my heartstrings, because I always feel like, later on in life, actually a year after this, my sister had Patrick.
Yeah.
And my mom just had such a different relationship with Patrick than the three of us. Like, I always feel like that's always the grandparents.
Yeah.
So, they kind of look back on what they did, and obviously they're going to spoil their grandchildren.
Right.
But this was way different.
Oh, it was so sweet.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Am I going to stay here?" He's like, "Yeah, you're going to stay here."
It was like, oh my God, it was so cute. That little actor was cute too.
I know. I wonder what happened. You know what? I'm going to look it up after this. I want to know what happened to that kid, because we looked up what Justin looks like now, and he looks exactly the same.
Yeah, it's just bigger.
Just more adult. Frustrated with Nathan, Susan hits her limit and kicks him out. Nathan realizes the mistakes he made, and losing Susan is his worst nightmare. He finally shows his fun side and serenades her in the middle of her teaching a class, so Susan takes him back. Another very sweet. And who was in the classroom?
Howie Durrell from the Backstreet Boys, my boo.
Weren't we just talking about Backstreet Boys?
We were talking about New Kids on the Block.
Yes. No, we were talking about how you always like the less popular.
Yes, that was my Howie.
The film ends with the entire family at the hospital waiting for Helen to have her baby. Julie and Karen have had their babies and seem very happy. Gary now has a father figure in George. Nathan is seen being silly with Patty, showing that he has lightened up and is allowing Patty to be a kid. And the family is ecstatic to see the newest addition to the Buckman family. Then the movie ends. A lot more happens.
Obviously.
There's this whole side plot with Kevin being on the baseball team, and that's also in the pilot, which I think both in the pilot summary and the movie plot summary, I left that out. But I mean, there's just so much that goes on in the movie. So if you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's so funny, so sweet, very heartwarming. All right, so now the pilot. So the series revolves around the Bravermans, parents, Zeke and Camille, and their adult children, Adam, Sarah, Crosby, and Julia, who all live in Berkeley, California. Adam, the eldest, is constantly juggling his life, as he is the one everyone goes to for everything, whether it's being a sounding board, fixing something, or giving advice. Adam and his wife, Christine, are currently having issues with their 8-year-old son, Max. Max has been having problems, and up until now, everyone just thinks he's just a little odd or quirky, but they quickly realize there is more to it. Christina tells Adam that a psychologist believes that Max has Asperger's syndrome. Sarah is a single mom with 2 teenage kids, Amber and Drew. Amber is outspoken and rebellious. Drew is more reserved. They are moving back home to Berkeley from Fresno and moving in with Zeke and Camille. Adam and Christina's teenage daughter, Hattie, invites Amber to go out with her friends, and they are caught with pot. Even though Amber says it wasn't hers, she knows that everyone is blaming her. Julia and Christina feel that Sarah needs to go out and meet someone, so Julia sets up Sarah with Jim. That's Sarah's high school sweetheart. Sarah and Jim go out, and at first, Sarah isn't thrilled, but she is reminded of how nice and thoughtful Jim is. Along with his self-confidence, Sarah becomes a little smitten. They sneak back to her parents' house to hook up, which is a really funny scene, and Drew walks in on them. Later on, Drew runs away to see his dad, Seth, a musician who has recently become sober. Seth calls Sarah, and she picks up Drew. At a gas station on the way home, Sarah tells Drew that he deserves to have a father, and that's her fault for choosing Seth, but she promises that she'll always be there for him and she's not going anywhere. And they hug. That was I had a dad. I had a dad growing up, but there were so many times where it was just me and my mom, and I very much, the scenes between Sarah and Drew, sometimes it just feels like they just took it out of my life and put it into Parenthood.
Oh, yeah.
And that scene at the gas station always kind of makes me tear up. I'm very grateful that I didn't just have a dad. I had another mom. I had Shelly, but a lot of times it was just me and my mom, and, I definitely always relate to that. Julia is a hotshot attorney that works 24/7. Her husband, Joel, is a stay-at-home dad for their young daughter, Sydney. Julia is worried that she is missing out on her daughter growing up and worries Sydney will begin to favor Joel. So they didn't delve too deeply into Julia and Joel's life. They kind of just touched on it, that she's a workaholic, she's very busy, and that Joel is, like we said, a stay-at-home dad. But they delve into it more. Crosby is a perpetual bachelor who works as a recording engineer. He is in an on and off again relationship with Katie. Katie is ready to settle down and start a family, but Crosby is scared of commitment. When he finds frozen sperm in Katie's freezer, he realizes that if he doesn't commit to Katie, then he will probably lose her. Throughout the pilot, Crosby is getting text messages from Jasmine, a ballet dancer he had a fling with about 6 years ago. Assuming that Jasmine is in town looking to hook up, Crosby avoids her to prove he is committed to Katie. Jasmine eventually shows up at Crosby's house and introduces him to Jabbar, his son.
So cute.
And the end. That's, like I said, a lot happens. A lot more happens, but you just need to go and watch it. It's on Hulu. The movie is on Tubi. Tubi sponsor us. That's going to be our new thing now.
Please.
So yeah, both the movie, I keep saying it, both the movie and the show are so great. You don't need to watch the movie in order to watch the show or vice versa, but I strongly recommend watching both of them because the movie is great.
Yeah.
And so what would you say? Would you recommend the movie and the show to people?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I still think the movie holds up.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't anything in it that I felt like was bad today.
Right.
I mean, like you
dated.
said,
Yeah.
They didn't totally address what Kevin's issues were. They just kind of said he has emotional problems and kind of skirted around that, but it wasn't in a bad way.
Right.
It was, yeah. So yeah, I actually would keep watching it because I think, you have talked a lot about the episodes that have made you cry, and that I'm a big Marshmallow as well, and so I think I would have liked it if I had kept watching it, but again, 2010, I don't know what was happening, and there was just probably so much crap on TV at the time. I didn't stick with it.
Yeah, it was, and like you said, it didn't even die. I always kind of forget that streaming hasn't been around forever.
Yeah.
Because it was like 2012 was when I started Netflix streaming.
Yeah.
And Hulu streaming and all of that. It was like 2012, 2013. So yeah, it was, there was a lot of that. That was the beginning of the oversaturation.
Yeah.
All right. You think that wraps this one up?
Yeah. Great episode.
Great epi. All right. That wraps up this episode. Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't already, go ahead and follow us on whichever platform you're listening to this podcast on. That way you'll be notified every time we publish a new episode. You can follow us on Instagram at WeJudgePilotPod. We're also on Facebook. You can leave us a comment, suggest a show for us to watch, or leave some emojis in the comments. What you got?
All right. I have them. It's kind of a cross between the movie and the show.
Yeah.
So I have the parents, any of like the siblings or family emojis, the baseball, the brain, the race car, any of the pregnant ladies, the grandparents, the locks, the scales for the attorney, the heart or the broken heart for, the high school sweetheart, the broken up relationships, the gas, the ice for the sperm, and the ballet shoes for the ending of the pilot.
And also, you can do the cool guy emoji for cool.
Yeah, cool guy. All right. Well, we are going to head out, but we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for listening.